All right. Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome back to another episode of VI and We. I am your host and political commentator, Anthony Martin Barrow Jr. Now, my allergies are having the best of me this afternoon, but the show must go on. And we have a guest that will be joining us shortly, Mr. Emmett Hansen, and he's running for delegate to Congress in the upcoming primary, which is scheduled for Saturday, August 1st. So we're going to get the opportunity to interview him in just a moment. But as many individuals know, I have to do my little powwow. So it's been a couple of weeks since we had the last episode. And in those couple of weeks, a lot has changed. A lot has happened. We've had forums, we've had debates, we've had all different types of events taking place. And I think it's very important for the public to understand and be aware of the fact that this primary is going to be one of the most intense primaries that we've seen in a very long time. And that's why I'm going to encourage people to get out to vote because it's very important that we play a part in our democracy. And people have been saying that the person who is makes it past the primary is potentially going to be our next governor. So I really need people to get out there and actually take note of who is running to represent the people of the Virgin Islands. Um, and just be mindful of who we're choosing to represent us. So, with that being said, we had two debates. The Democratic Party of the Virgin Islands had three debates actually. Um, well, let me not say three, two. I'm not gonna say three because they had the congressional, the lieutenant governor, and then the gubernatorial. Yes, so they had three debates, and then they had the senatorial forum where the public was able to come out and participate in the process. St. Thomas had their forum first, um, and then St. Croix had their forum next, and then after St. Croix's senatorial was the congressional, and then after the congressional was the lieutenant gubernatorial, and then after that one was the gubernatorial. I got to attend the congressional and the gubernatorial and lieutenant gubernatorial debates, and it was definitely refreshing to say the least. Um, Mainly because we were able to really see which individuals are ready for the job. Not people who are just talking about becoming the governor or lieutenant governor or whatever, but actually people who have been preparing to serve in this capacity. That is the whole point of the debate, so that we could see who is ready for the job or not. Um, and I definitely saw a front runner in the congressional debate. I definitely saw a front runner in the gubernatorial and lieutenant gubernatorial debates. But again, the people have the right to go out and vote. So choose wisely as to who you plan to elect or plan to vote in the primary. And then, of course, in November, you do the same. So, of course, the gubernatorial teams, we have Plaskett Potter, that's running as number two. They have their last lap rally actually today for the St. Thomas district. Then you have Dana Fred Gregory and Rodney Moorhead. They're having some events as well this weekend. Most of the governor, I think all the gubernatorial teams are doing like their last laps this weekend. So you have them, and then of course you have Tregenza Road and Novel Francis. And so these are the gubernatorial teams. And if you were not in the room for the gubernatorial and lieutenant gubernatorial debates, you missed out. The vibe was just high. Like it was just high. Everybody was, you know, understanding what's going on. It was just totally different. And so it was just a different vibe. It was just different, you know what I mean? If my face looks kind of puffy, it's because of my allergies. But the whole the whole vibe was just there. Even the congressional debate, even though some moments individuals got frustrated and the audience, some of the members could not control the emotions to the best. It was intense, and I appreciate that because that lets me know people are engaged in the process. Now, I have always said that even though you're engaged in the process, you don't have to be rude about it. You don't have to be rude about who's running against the person you support. Because first of all, running for office is a tough response. Is a tough thing to do. You know, it's a risk. You get scrutinized for everything in your past, present, future. You get your platform is now public. You as a person is public. Everything is now public. You know what I mean? And so it's not easy putting up yourself for service. If it's appointed office, elected office, it doesn't matter which one. When you're in the front line or in the what do you call it, in the spotlight, is difficult. So I just need people to go back. The Democratic Party has the debates and the forums on their page, so go and watch them and make your determination as to who you think should be our next governor, our next lieutenant governor, and our next delegate to Congress, and our next senators for the St. Croix district and for the St. Thomas St. John district, and at the at large seat. And then, of course, don't neglect our Board of Education and Board of Election candidates, even though they don't have necessarily forums per se. Don't forget about them, because those boards are very important, just as important as any other position on the ballot. So, with that being said, Active Advocates has been continuing to push that VI and we is looking for candidates to come on. We're not charging a dime at all to come on the show, but we really want you to get to share your platform, share information. And then again, I get the opportunity to network with you and have a conversation. And I think is important, and our young people could see that they could see not necessarily our young people are not interested, because there's a lot of young people interested. Um, but this is an opportunity for you to come on. And so we have a few spots left, a few dates left, and a few times left. But the next candidate that we're interviewing today, like I said, is Emmett Hansen, and he's a candidate for the office of delegate to Congress. And he took advantage of the opportunity to come on the show. So, with that being said, I'm going to bring him on, and he's going to get the opportunity to introduce himself to you, the audience, and then, of course, we'll dive into the very serious questions about the position, where we are as a territory, and what he can do if he's elected. Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mr. Martinborough. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you. Same to you as well. So, for
Yes,
those
sir.
individuals who don't know who you are,
hmm
this is your opportunity to tell the public who is Emmett Hansen.
Okay, and before I say anything, thank you very much for the opportunity. Your team is extremely responsive, and I like how you guys move. I really
Thank you.
do. Yeah, and and to just say a little bit more about this, since we lost the Avis on St. Croix, we don't get the opportunity or the avenue to interact with our folks. So again, thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. No problem.
So my name is Emmett Hansen, and I have been preparing for this. It didn't start out that way, but I have also often chosen how and where I will serve my community. And so that began, with my father. My father had an upholstery shop, and he used to make a new covering for the Ebbenites. Us older persons will recognize the Ebbenites. It was, I believe, the first really big steel pen here
Mm.
in the Virgin Islands with Daga Rezendi and Darwin King and those guys who were his peers. And so service was something that we were pretty much born into, like it or not. But I happen to like it. Through the Boy Scouts and my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. This is my 46th year as a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, and I am a life member. So And it's a service fraternity. 2 Saturdays ago, we were down in Frederickstead picking up trash. So still active in my community. But regarding the political landscape, I'll share something with you because I think it's important because popularity and efficiency are often at odds. When I became, I came home after college in 1985. I was a reporter, I was a teacher, um, and I started getting involved in the local Democratic Party because I started that in New Orleans. We worked for the first Black mayor, Dutch Morial, and got to know his family and whatnot. It was really very nice. If you've ever been to Louisiana, you'll think you're in St. Croix. Trust me. The food is the same. The music has the same rhythms, the same beats. It's the social mores. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. It's very much like here, so I was comfortable. But looking at how politics work in a hostile environment really opened up my eyes to many, many things. And so I came home and I got involved. And and this is the point, without being too long-winded. I started doing a television show at WTJX. I was writing for the newspaper and started to get a little popular. And your head swells a little bit. And I said to a dear friend of mine, I think I'm a run. People are asking me to run. And they looked at me and they like that. I'm like, what? They say, you're not ready. You're not ready. You have the best of intentions, but you don't know enough to go in there and really know what you're doing. You're going to get led astray because that's what they do. And my little man pride was hurt. But then I went and I thought about it. And I went back and said, you know what? You're right. And thank you. So to that end, I have been getting ready for this for decades. When I worked at the university, UVI, I looked at, I could have gotten an MBA, which was so much more profitable, but I ended up with studies for public administration because I needed to know that if I was going to enter that field, how government should work. And in fact, my thesis is now law, and that was the Infrastructure Maintenance Act, which took the property taxes and created 3 lock boxes in each district: potable water, local roads, and street lights. And in fact, this legislature, one of the legislators, when they were arguing about the street lights, he
Mhm.
actually used that bill to pay for the street lights. So I could have only done that if I'd studied and
Mhm.
realized how to work within the system, within the construct to help my people. So right now, um, we have an opportunity to change the Virgin Islands because I have said many times that we have to build the Virgin Islands from within. I am not a fan of the EDC program. I think it has become dangerous because we've had some persons that we should have never been associated with who got hit through the EDC program. So I don't believe that we have the sufficient scrutiny, background checks. And the same EDC persons went to the legislature recently and said they don't know who paid. How are we paying you and you don't know? And that's your only job. So we're just here giving everything away and we're not getting anything from it. Even if you look at the amount of money that we save these individuals, and our
Mhm.
hospitals are still in need. So and 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 I get carried away, so forgive me.
No
So
worries.
okay, so let me let you ask your questions, and I guess we can weave that in, as we
Yes.
talk this evening.
Good, good, good. No, no problem. Good point. Because I think people need to understand that when you offer yourself up for service and people ask you the question of who you are, that has to be a really comprehensive answer. Because if you're running, especially if you're running to be delegate to Congress or governor, you know, who are you? because your life circumstances, how where your journey led you, plays a
Mhm.
part in the person you are, in terms of your character, in terms of your values, your morals, your ethics, and those are things that are important when we're electing people, even though it's not on the paper in terms of, okay, this is what qualifies you for the office. It's
Mhm.
socially, and morally, those are qualifications that we value in our leaders. So, that's very, very important. So, and you kind of
Mhm.
answered my second question, which was more talking about, you know, what led you to even consider delegate to Congress as an idea. But you could
Mhm.
expand on it more if you want to, and
I'd
why you
like to.
decide to run this year.
Yes. I have been a member of the DNC for a decade, 10 years. And it started when I was in the Senate for 2 terms. And as a democratically elected official, you are automatically there. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
took it further and became enmeshed in to learn how things are done there. Now, here locally, it's a lot easier. But there, when people talk about the Democratic caucus, it's very important because if you know what you're doing, you go to the caucus and you present your plan. There's so much experience and knowledge there because I got resolutions passed, but first, I would sit down in this room, and it's a couple hundred people, and you give your idea about what you want to do. Now, I'm a legislator. It's not time to be modest, so I'll say this: I'm a very good one, a very good one. So when you can do that, and these people know you, because it moves very, very, very fast. For example, right now with the midterms, it is a high probability that the Democrats will assume control.
Mm-hmm.
As such, they have to move together, they have to move fast. And I will tell you, they're not going to have room to make nice with new people. Not because they don't want to, but they need to undo a lot of things. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I don't know if people forgot, but there's still a lack of knowledge about what happened to those children that were in cages from President Trump's first term.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of children we still don't know where they are, but we know who he was friends with,
Yes.
right? Okay, so things are going to move fast. I've met President Biden many, many times. He's always up and down in St. Croix, so he's not hard to find. But I've met him there.
Mm-hmm.
I've met a lot of these persons. And it's not as difficult as some would make you think, because if you're a reasonable person, reason meets reason. So when I was doing a housing initiative, a gentleman by the name of Roy Bernardi was an assistant secretary of HUD, and he actually came down to the housing fair that I had here on St. Croix and promised to provide the money through HUD for the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When Senator Fonseca was executive director of the Housing Authority,
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with another uh, deputy uh, of HUD, which was Michael Liu,
Mm-hmm.
who was from Hawaii. And he actually came down and sat in the legislature after he met with the tenant councils and gave
Mm-hmm.
everyone the update. So I said it to say that I am very purpose driven. I'm a very, sometimes perhaps too intense when I'm doing something. I get wrapped up in it, but I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the ability, which has been demonstrated time and time and time again, to work with people because I have found that as long as you can show that you're sincere and you put in the work, you will get the help.
Yeah, and I understand that because that's who I am as a person myself. Like, if I dedicate myself to something, I'm going to see it through all the way. I
Mhm.
don't like to start something and then don't finish it. That's not me, because I put effort into things, and I want it to come out the way that I envision it. Now, of
Yes.
course, everything is not going to come out perfect, obviously, but once it has met the idea, the vision, and the problem I was trying to address, I'm
Yes.
happy with it.
There you
Now,
go.
things could be adjusted, of course, because this is life. But
Right.
like I said, I think people need to understand that, and this has been something we've been dealing with for years, where people try to look at our politicians as perfect people. They're not perfect people.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where we get disappointed because we expect them to do nothing wrong, or we expect them to not make I could put this make a wrong decision in the sense of how they were thinking about something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say this: some individuals make decisions they know are wrong, but they make it anyway because of their own gain or their own selfish ideas or whatever the case may be. But
Mm-hmm.
there are some people who genuinely make decisions and didn't necessarily think it was wrong, but then learned from it and corrected it. You know what I mean? And so I think this season, people need to really understand that nobody's perfect, but at the same time, not compromise, the person's work ethic, their skills, and their morals. I think once these people have an experience, because experience is very important. Once
Mm-hmm.
these people have these things, I think we should be more open-minded to giving people opportunity. So you talked about being when you served as a senator. I want you to kind of dive more into that. Like what was
Mm-hmm.
and you talked about something you did while you were in that role in terms of the housing initiative. But like
Yes.
expand on something else that you did that had a major impact on the territory while you were in the legislature.
Thank you. Um, Great question. One of the first major bill that I passed, or with my colleagues that passed, was the Gun Control Act. Because having been in law enforcement in the States, I saw it coming to what it is now. And before I go any further, let me send my condolences to the family and friends and neighbors of that child who
Yes. Yes.
passed away. Um, I love kids, I do,
Mhm.
and that one hurt. That one really hurt. I mean, oh God, 4 years old, you can't even
Yeah, he
spell your
hasn't
name.
experienced life yet. You know what I mean? He didn't get
Nothing,
the chance to experience life.
nothing. You just start eating with a spoon,
Hmm.
But I don't want to dwell on that because
Of
it's
course.
it's it's painful for everyone. And I know my community well enough to know that there'll be enough blame and melee flinging about what happened. And I
Hmm.
think that our attention should really be with the family, regardless as to who is at fault.
Yes.
That's gut busting, and it's going to affect them for years to come.
Hmm.
But at that time, and I've said it throughout the campaign trail, that was in 2001. We're in 2026. It's 25 years later,
Yes.
and we still are having the same issues,
Hmm.
you know. And I am against what the administration has been doing in regard to making it harder for citizens who have no record at all, who are coming and saying, I need to protect my family. Here are my
Hmm.
fingerprints. Here's the gun that I want. Why are you not allowing the populace to protect themselves, especially the ones who want a license? I think
Yes.
we are again. I think that we are so far past the time where the excuse of an administration is that, well, you don't have a business. What does that have to
Hmm.
do with it? It has nothing to do with it. So from
Hmm.
from there, I got the. Oh, and by the way, every single one of my bills, Governor Turnbull, for whatever reason, vetoed every single one, and my colleagues over helped me to override him every single time because they saw the importance of what I was trying to do. The second was the Infrastructure Maintenance Act, and again, there was a lot of work. It was a lot of work to find out how we use the money collected for property taxes. If you live in the States, they show you where your money is going. This is for schools, this is for police, this is for this is for that.
Hmm.
What we did for decades and decades and decades, is we took the property taxes and we dumped it in a general fund, where it became part of a slush fund. But the
Mm.
property owner never received a benefit for paying the property taxes.
Mm.
And I'll go so far as to say this: because part of this was for potable water,
Mm.
maintenance, and expansion, if they had listened and done what they're supposed to do, there wouldn't have been a soul who had this problem with the brown water, the contaminated water, because the money
Okay.
was there to replace those pipes.
Mm.
They just didn't do it. They just didn't do it. There's no other way around it. And it's shameful that the money is dedicated to this particular thing, but you can't get your hands on it, so you don't do anything with it. Shameful. People getting lesions on their skin. The babies can't bathe in it. You're actually bathing babies in bottled water. I mean, seriously,
Hmm.
you
That's
can't
what we
do
come
it.
to now. Yeah, it's serious.
Exactly. And the money is there. You could have used it right out of the pipe, or you could have gone and issued a short-term bond, because the
Hmm.
money was coming, because we collect property taxes every year. And then the other one was the street lights. I live on the eastern end of St. Croix. Potable water stops at Tide Village.
Hmm.
Why?
Yes.
I, I'm talking about well over 20 years. Still, it stops at Tide Village. And it used to be dark. I mean, it
Mm.
was nice on a clear night. You go out there, you could see every single star. But that's not what we need, particularly with the rising crime rate. The last one was the housing initiative,
Hmm.
because when we first, my family's from here for generations. I have pictures of my great great grandfather. So
Yes, your last name is very known here.
yes, yes, you know. But when we moved back from New York, there was
Hmm.
no housing. Thank God we could get a nice apartment in Kennedy,
Hmm.
where my maternal grandparents lived, and then we ended up buying a house in Sly Farm. But I've never forgotten the impermanence of moving from here to here to here to here, right?
Hmm.
So that has always stayed on my mind. And if you think about it, there has, since that time, early 70s, there's never been another major housing initiative. Well, this was the one, the Housing Act, Affordable Housing Act of 2004, because I sat down with experts, with realtors,
Hmm.
and construction persons. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine in St. Thomas, Denswell Butch Hodge of Apex Construction, one of the largest ones. We actually went to Florida to see about getting a company to come here
Hmm.
and build modular homes, because the intent was, this is how the bill worked. We know the government owns the most land in the entire Virgin Islands.
Yes.
But because the government is just keeping this land, it's made the remaining land more expensive. Like diamonds, there's no lack of supply of diamonds, but the De Beers family was just holding back so they didn't glut the market and depreciate the value. It's the same thing with the land. The government wasn't using it. So what it did was to make government land available to a developer to build homes. And for the developer, it worked to their advantage, because now they don't have to buy the land. So if they
Mm.
don't have to buy the land, they build a house, but the government, upon the sale of the home, leaves
Hmm.
the land to that family. Now, the best thing about that part is that it brings down the cost, because the developer does not have to buy it. He has the right to build a house, but it's a plan that the government has to agree with. And then when the homeowner purchases the land and they get the deed to the land, they have just gained 30% equity in that home. So upon doing that, they've already got a nest egg where they can go and borrow against the equity if they need to. You have an elder family member that needs specialized care. Well, there you go. It's your own bank. You want to send your kids to college or a training program, there you are. If you want to buy another piece of land for
Mhm.
yourself, now you have the equity in this home to go and do that. So it's like our people now have their own private bank.
Mhm.
The other thing about that is that we all should know by now and recognize the fact that if you don't own property, you're a consumer, and as such, you will never be middle class.
Mm.
Owning property makes you truly middle class because, as I said just a few seconds ago, that is your economic engine.
Mm.
See? So those are just three, but I want to get those out of the way because right now, uh, the only thing really that has kept that from happening is that we live in a financial desert.
Mhm.
Anybody could tell you, unless you're buying a vehicle or doing something like taking a vacation, you don't get loans.
Mm.
Local people are locked out of that. You
Yes.
see? But again, if you want to buy a $50,000 truck, you get a loan like that. But
Mhm.
go ahead and try and buy a $50,000 piece of land. Good luck.
Mhm.
And it's not just now, you see?
Yes.
So, stateside now, Congresswoman Elizabeth Warren worked with Tim Scott to do an Affordable Housing Act.
Mhm.
And for even just that reason, I believe that my people should send me to Congress to get the money because that's one of the tenets
Mhm.
that they provide funding in rural areas, which we are, for home
Mhm.
ownership. Our local bill is right there. It's been done. All the work has been done.
Mhm.
And when you start thinking about the fact that we will have so much construction going on,
Mhm.
the beneficiaries of this effort will be local people. Because the way I wrote the bill, you had to live here 5 years in order to be on the list. The reason for that is because we don't want people coming down here and buying these houses as rental property. We don't want them buying them as second homes. Oh, we have a house in St. Croix. No, it's for those of us who live here for 5 years. In 5 years, you could eat enough fungi to be a local, right? So you're
Mhm.
part of the community. I believe that. And
Gotcha.
and no, go ahead, please, Anthony.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. So I was gonna just say that I understand your point when you were talking about that if you don't own a home or have that a property, then you're considered a consumer, and I can understand that because I always share with people that the Virgin Islands really doesn't have a middle class as of right now. Back
Right.
in the days before I was even a thought, that was a thing. The middle class
Mm-hmm.
was a thriving um, group of Virgin Islanders and individuals from the Eastern Caribbean that had jobs in the blue economy, that had jobs in the refinery, that had jobs in
Mm-hmm.
construction, and our career workers, our educators who did 30 years, our nurses, those individuals really made up our working middle class. We don't
Yes.
have a middle class, to be honest with you. We have the wealthy, of course. We have
Mm-hmm.
the low income, and then we have the working poor. The
Right.
working poor are technically supposed to be our middle class, but because most of the working poor can't afford to buy a house, do you know that, or own property, then that puts them at a position that makes them consider working poor.
Right.
And that is where, because if people look back, all of those individuals who was in the middle class back in the days, they're the ones that currently own the homes that are on rent right now.
Yes.
So they were able to successfully get homes. But you also mentioned, you were talking about the housing initiative, and you were mentioning that that was one of the major your initiative was one of the major housing initiatives. Some may
Mm-hmm.
say the Brian Roach administration did the VI slice, and they were able to get the Envision Tomorrow. So what are your thoughts on those initiatives? Do you think they had the major impact that it needed to have on the territory? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it had the best of intentions, but the execution was found wanting because in 8 years there has been no substantial impact. Great idea, but the execution was wanting, and I'll tell you why I feel that way. The the bill, the
Yes.
Affordable Housing Act of 2004 said that what we would do was we would build 500 homes a year,
Hmm.
350 on St. Croix, 100 on St. Thomas, and 50 on St. John.
Yes.
Clearly, we have more buildable, usable, easily usable land here on St. Croix.
Yes.
But there's still spots on St. Thomas where St. Thomas live a little differently. They build up, we build out, and
Yes.
that's terrain driven.
Yes.
So good. Now the thing is that it was a 5-year plan, so that's 2,500 homes.
Hmm.
Just think for a second, if in that short amount of time we could build or we could raise 2,500 families.
Hmm.
Now, when we're talking about impact, that's the impact. That is an impact all over the entire Virgin Islands. And it is a lasting impact, which is forward facing.
Yes.
You see? But that's how my mind works. Not for today is fine. But how
Hmm.
would that impact expand over that? Now, right now, again, we have really, except for back in the early 70s, that is the only time when we raise families up. Now,
Hmm.
if we could do that now, because as I said before, the only problem was that the money wasn't there.
Mm.
If you look at GRS, which does do mortgages, they stopped for a minute and now they're doing it
Yes.
again, right?
Yes.
But can they really afford to, right?
True.
Can they really afford to? I don't think so. Because we're talking about 30 years or 15 years, depending on your mortgage. But
Yeah.
because of the nature of this project, it's more for commercial bank or federal funding, which is what I mentioned just a few moments ago. So we have to look and see what is the best way to spread the wealth and permanently. I remember when we had the discussion about the cat cracker because we were linked with Venezuela and their crude oil, and it was presented to us as though this was a permanent cure. Of course, it wasn't. We didn't have the cat cracker for but a couple of years, and right now it's just sitting there rusting, and will probably never be used again. But we have to look and be intentional about how we raise our people up, and that's
Thank you for
why. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying thank you for sharing that. That was very
Oh,
important to share.
thank you.
No
Yeah.
problem. So let's shift gears a little bit. You're running for delegate to Congress. This will be the first time the Virgin Islands is having a new delegate since 12 years since we've elected a new delegate.
Mhm.
And you've laid out some parts of your vision. But I want you to kind of share with us. You're the only male in the Democratic primary.
Yeah,
Because there's the other male that's running for Congress. He's an independent, but you're the only male in the primary. And I wanted to talk about the debate because I think it's
sure.
very important that you share your perspective because I was there in the audience. That's how we met.
Right.
And I was there to see the debate. So first, what were your thoughts on the debate?
I I'll tell you a pet peeve of mine.
Sure.
My pet peeve is when you spend 3 minutes giving me a history of what you asked me and tell me I have to answer the question in 90 seconds. I- That is my pet peeve.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask me the question. I don't need a history lesson. If I can't answer, I can't answer. But when you're giving me all this, that, the other, da, 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 you're not asking me a question, you're not serving the audience, and you're not doing them any favors. You're trying to show off what you may or may not have Googled. Ask the
Hmm.
question and give. See, I'm enjoying myself here
Yes.
because you're allowing me time to give you a real answer.
Yes.
You see, you're allowing. I've looked at the other programs, and that's the way you guys do it. That's why I contact you. I couldn't wait to get here.
Thank you.
Seriously, because there's an honest search for knowledge. Who is
Yes.
this guy? What's he about? What has he done?
Mm.
I can't do that in 90 seconds,
True.
So that was the first thing. The other thing is I thought that and the cheering doesn't matter to me because
Hmm.
I'm glad to see people involved, whether you're there for me or you're there for somebody else. You are
Yes.
actively and civically involved, and I appreciate that.
Hmm.
But I think that the moderator missed an opportunity to calm down the crowd
I agree.
because there were times that I'm on the stage and I couldn't hear what
Hmm.
my colleague, I guess, was
Yes.
saying.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a failing. But having done that, you set the parameters as you did with
Hmm.
this. You set the parameters so that people can actually learn about the candidates.
Yes.
But other than that, the auditorium was almost full, which I said I loved that. I thought it was
Yes.
great. Yeah, but when the bickering started, I found it distasteful.
Hmm. Yes. I could tell. You said I am not getting in the middle of that. And I appreciated that because this is a
Thank you.
serious atmosphere, and we're really trying to figure out who we want to send to represent us federally. This is not the
Yes.
time for these petty little jobs. Like, this is not the place for that. This is supposed to be answering the questions, seeing for so that the audience could see, because I think people miss this part all the time. They have people who are for a candidate, they have people who are against a candidate, but then they have people in the middle that doesn't know who they want to, excuse me, who they want to vote for as yet. And that
Right.
was me when I attended the debate. I was an undecided voter in terms of who I wanted for the delegate to Congress. And I
Mhm.
really wanted to get a perspective for each candidate to make my determination. But then when you have someone not controlling the atmosphere, and then you have
Right.
the audience cheering, and I'm trying to hear, which I do appreciate them cheering. That is very important. But I'm trying to hear what somebody is saying. That doesn't help. And so that's a
Mhm.
way to easily get somebody disengaged. If I was a new voter
Yes.
coming in and I saw that, I would be like, if this is what it's gonna be like, then why am I taking part? But because I'm an educated voter and this would be my third, yeah, third election voting, for
Mhm.
third cycle, I should say, election voting, I'm already educated in the sense of, okay, this is expected to some degree because this is also what I'm studying in college, political
Mhm.
science. So I'm kind of familiar with this, with the jobs that people try to throw. But I think what some individuals walked away with, and that we could respect with you, is that you're focused on the business. You're not focused
Yeah.
on all of this jabber jabber stuff that they had going on. You're actually trying to answer the
Mhm.
questions, be on task, so that people could see what you plan to bring if we were elected to the position. So I truly appreciate that. But I want to dive
Thank you.
into some of the questions, based on what I remember, or what
Mhm.
I should say, what I heard when I heard questions
Yes.
from the debate. So one of the things that came about was the discussion about the rum cover over, and that was one of the major
Oh yeah.
questions. We all
Yeah.
knew that question was going to come up. What are your thoughts on this whole rum cover over funding discussion that has been occurring for the past, for years, but has really spiked back up again because of the permanent 1325 rate that was just passed earlier this year?
I think that I honestly believe that it was financially dangerous to tie that to GRS.
Mm,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
because I have been around long enough to know when we had it. I'm also aware when we didn't, when they dropped to 10. I think that the proper way to have held it was to go ahead and tie it to inflation, with
Mm-hmm.
13.25 being the bottom. That is the
Mm-hmm.
base rate. But if our money changes, because $100 isn't always $100,
True.
right? You could go to Pueblo, you go to wherever, and
Mm-hmm.
what you could have bought for $100 2 years ago or pre-COVID
Facts.
is not what you're gonna get today.
It's true.
I walked in the store today. Now on the weekend, I like my canned beef and my white rice and my can. That's
Mm-hmm.
comfort food to me. You know what I'm saying? But
Yes.
the can was $7.99.
Here we
I
go.
was like, I was like, what? This used to
Mm-hmm.
be $3.99. In fact, a month ago it was $3.99 in Plaza. Now I didn't go
Mm-hmm.
into Plaza, but damn,
Yeah.
you know. So my feeling should have been, if we're gonna make it permanent, make it a floating rate with 13.25 being the base rate. However, my solution or my take on it, as you know, is very different.
Yes.
And again, it's because of my studies in public administration and all these things, because my thing is to change one word to two. Take out
Mm-hmm.
rum and make it distilled spirits.
Mm-hmm.
We are at a rare opportunity here at St. Croix where we can bring
Yes.
in money, but also create a tourism product.
Yes.
Because everybody who comes here wants to go, they want to go on the Diageo tour. They want
Yes.
to go on the Cruise and Rum tour. They want to
Yes.
go by Mutiny. And I spoke with
Yes.
Todd Manley about this and asked him, Todd, you know, you're doing great with Mutiny. Would you like to be included in in the rum cover over and make it a distilled spirit? He
Mm-hmm.
was over the moon. And see, I call names because I'm not making it up. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because if you tell me somebody tell me and you ain't friends no more, because I don't believe you. Honestly, that's how I am. First of all, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like melee. Well, everybody saw that. I don't like melee. I don't like mess. I don't like gossip. And if you're going to tell me something, tell me the whole thing. You see?
True.
But the thing is that we didn't give Todd money to do that. We didn't give prosperity money. This has
Mm-hmm.
grown up organically,
Yes.
right? And the thing is that if we can go ahead and just like he's using breadfruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, my yard is a mess every summer, mango everywhere, right?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that we could distill a mango liqueur that you could only get here.
Mm-hmm.
And we could do so many other things, you see? So my
Yes.
thing was change this so that we get, because once it's done in Congress, it's going to take moving the moon. Because the thing is, and I think they would be right to say, but we just did this for you. Now you're coming for something else. So it's naive to believe that with this being just now, this year, it changed, that
Mm-hmm.
we can go next year and change it. It's not going to happen.
Nope. It's not gonna
But
happen.
we could change that one word and tell people, just like I told you, we are looking at more distilleries. We don't
Yes.
need anything from you unless it's a SBA, excuse me, SBA loan or something. But for us, we will have so many more young people learning the chemistry of distilling
Yes.
that they could take anywhere, anywhere, or one day even make their own. You see, so I, and I'll just admit it, I know a lot of times I think out the box, but yet I've
Mm-hmm.
not found anyone to poke holes in what I'm doing. Because where is the danger in this? Where's the downside to being able to get more money into our treasury just by changing the word rum to distilled spirits?
Thank you for sharing that. Because I wanted to hear the perspective on it. Because some are saying we should be glad that we got the amount we were asking, and then some are saying Okay, maybe we should ask for increase. Some are saying it should be done by a percentage, which I agree with,
Uh-huh.
because not only am I studying political science, but part of my minor is in public administration. And yes, and
Yeah.
I taught economics when I taught high school, right?
Mhm.
That was one of the classes I taught to my students, and we talked about that. We talked about inflation, and we talked about how you don't ever set a permanent um, price
Right.
or number, especially on taxes, because taxes is linked to inflation, and so if you're
Right.
putting a specific number, then you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because 10 years from now, that dollar is not going to be the same dollar that you spent today,
That's right.
because time changes money. And we talk about this all the time. And so I do understand the point of setting a base rate, which is what you said, and which is what I will just say. Candidate Saru mentioned the same thing as well, and she's running for the same office as you. But
Yes.
but that was that was that would have been the best route in terms of getting this done. You say, okay, well, 1325 is gonna be the minimum. This is what's gonna be the last, resort. But right now we are in 2026. This is how much it should be now. But even
Right.
to that point, I think we even need to start exploring different avenues beyond that, beyond rum as well, because actually in data shows that young people are drinking lesser and lesser amounts of rum.
Hmm.
So, and I can speak to that because I don't drink. So, so we're
Hmm.
drinking less and less of rum. So, what are some ideas you think you could do as you were elected to be delegate to Congress that could help stimulate economic development besides the rum?
You know, I just had this conversation with some friends of mine, and we need to go back to light manufacturing. I think the watch industry came here in the 60s, right? And in the
Mhm,
70s, it ballooned and again assisted in creating a middle class that wasn't tied to the refinery.
mhm.
So when we were making those watches, I'll tell you a little
Yes.
secret. Yeah, the watch manufacturing was huge, huge. When I went to college, what I would do is I would pass by the watch factories and I would buy like maybe 5 or 10 watches because they were inexpensive for us. But I had my summer job and I could go and do that. And then when I went to college, I'd wear them. And somebody say, "Oh, wait, man, that's a nice watch." And I'd sell the 10 watches, for the sticker price and maybe take off a little bit if it's my buddy, right? And I mean, men's and women watches. And I have built a little case to carry them in. But the point is that that's a non-polluting, well-paying job.
Yes.
And there's a lot of that we can do. And when President Trump got in and started with the tariffs, and the Chinese pulled the cover off of that and said, "Hey, you want a Gucci bag? Buy it from us. We're the ones that are making them. They're not made in France. They just put the label on."
Hmm.
So when that came off, my mind is like, we need to hook up with these folks.
Yes.
And we need to be able to sell luxury items. I think this is before your time, but downtown Christians did. And in Fredericksburg as well, used to have the day trippers. And what it was, people would come from Puerto Rico and they would buy the Lalique statues, they would buy
Mm-hmm.
jewelry, they would buy rum, these sorts of things. But we let that get away.
Hmm.
You see, we let that get away. But sometimes the answers to the future can be found in the past. So this
True.
is light manufacturing. We never should have let it get away because as we saw, as we were exposed to, right?
Hmm.
we can have we can go ahead and get these things from there and sell them here because there
Yes.
is a federal law that if you bring in a product and you do a simple improvement, There's no duty when it goes to the states.
True.
But we have never taken advantage of that. So my focus, I think you can see, is that I'm not trying to change the world. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to change our economy. I'm trying to do, as we used to say in the Senate, provide the bread and butter issues,
Yes.
because if that's not what you're doing, then you're not serving your people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not every swing is going to be a home run. I believe that changing it from rum to distilled spirits, that's a home run
Yes.
because now we're building an entire new economy that we haven't had before, and we're exposing that to the world. And ecologically, we're using natural fruit. We're not putting chemicals in it. We're taking
Mm-hmm.
things from the land, right? So when we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about all
Yes.
of these things. It all ties into one. You see? So that's how I work when we were talking about putting our people in their own home because the local law has been there for many years, but now we're bringing the financial side of it. So we don't have to depend on First Bank, Banco, or Merchants or Oriental. You
All
see?
right. Yes. So I want to dive into some other things. I want to just two questions that are definitely off the top of my head that are burning. And the first one is mainly most of the delegates that were elected from the
Mm.
territory have been from St. Croix. And some would say, however, that St. Croix has continued to fall apart, even though even though the delegate typically is elected from the St. Croix district. If
Mm.
you were to be elected, what differences would you do from your predecessors to dispel this narrative that has been pushed?
I don't think it was natural. I would tend to agree with that. But you see, I believe that without a foundation, you don't have a house.
Hmm.
Which is why uh, you hear me always talk about what can I change for the Virgin Islands?
Yes.
What can I change for those coming behind me? Because we really do have a brain drain here. And it's because, again, the money that we get, we don't use it for us. There's always some great plan, some great scheme for somebody getting off an airplane. Now, I'm not against people coming in,
Hmm.
but the preacher christens his own child first. So when we're talking about, and again, you heard me say earlier, I am not a fan of the EDC program. Okay,
Yes.
I'm not because again, things like the hospital, we have a university there, but we used to bring in nurses. We used to import nurses and pay for their lodging and pay them more than local nurses. I
Hmm.
reject that. I reject that type of thinking entirely. My sole purpose would be what can I get there and bring here?
Yes.
You see, things like bags. I have seen some young people do some
Hmm.
marvelous things, designing and whatnot. But we have to, it's good enough that they have that interest. But
Yes.
we now have to create the market.
That part. That part, right. We have to
Yes,
make the market, because
yes,
we could tell young people, okay, I want you to do prime example, right? Right now we have construction, right? We have
right.
all these projects that are happening, we're building, all that. The problem that, because full disclosure, people know I serve on the board for career and technical education. I'm the chairman. What we're now doing is getting these contractors to say, hey, listen, we don't have a lot of teachers in our instructors in our schools to teach construction. Let's see if we could do some apprenticeships to get you out to take these students who are interested in construction under your way to get them into the workforce. We have to create the market. If we
Right.
want young individuals to come back to the Virgin Islands, I do understand when people say, oh well, we need them to come back and make home better. That's the only way it's gonna get better. And I do not disagree with that. I do think they have
Mhm.
to come back if you want to make this place better. However, come back to live where? That is going to always be the issue. To live where? And then the salaries um are not matching with the qualifications that somebody has had. Somebody with a
Exactly.
master's doing policy work in the Virgin Islands making 85, but they can go to California and make maybe four times that
185.
amount. You know
Yes.
what I mean? So the amounts, the salaries, and then housing. And then some people, just this younger generation, data shows it, just does not see ourselves doing 30 years working for the government.
Right.
That is not it. And I keep telling people we have to be creative in how we get things done. Because back in the days when my grandmother and my grandfather, when they were trying to make a living, they did 30 years in a career. That's what they did. But now they're looking at us and as their grandchildren, and they're like, okay, you don't want to be in that job for more than 12 years? No, I'm good. Because we always want to do something different. And so that's why you have
Mhm.
to be creative in getting them interested first
Right.
and
Eh,
keeping them. And another reason why people don't want to come back home is because of healthcare, which is what I'm going to come to you now. As
Yes.
delegate to Congress, if you were elected, what would be some of your ideas or initiatives to address the healthcare crisis that the Virgin Islands is experiencing?
Man, I'm so glad you asked me that because if a society cannot take care of the elderly and the young, then it's not a society.
Facts.
It's not. Period. And I'll get a point with anybody or everybody. Healthcare is as basic as eating. And the
Yes.
thing is that part of it is our fault. Part of it is the discriminatory nature of the federal government towards not just us, but all territories. Because when you look at what comes out of your check, we don't pay a dime cent less than someone making that money in any one of the 50 states. Yet, you basically deny that money to the territories. So even the assisted living homes aren't making what they're supposed to make. But and I've said this many times, and in fact, I know I said it in the last two debates that what we have to do, we have to change how we address this. It must be addressed, but the way you have to address it is to say, and this is what I plan to do: explain to me why I'm paying the same money, but I'm getting less. Who am I subsidizing? Is it Mississippi? Is it Arkansas? Is it one of those square states that got 50 people living in the whole place? Who am I subsidizing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, make it make sense that the elderly don't get the care, the young folks don't get the care, and our veterans damn sure don't get the care. But again, this is a time when we can actually build veteran homes here, a facility for them, because they just upped the money. The veterans did on their own, the Veterans Administration.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, as you said before, that folks aren't looking at that. They're looking at the big picture because that should have been the first thing that grabbed their attention because it didn't just happen. It happened this fiscal year, but it didn't just happen. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to look, we have to pay attention, you have to research, you have to stand it to say that we can now change that. But you have to know how to approach it. You can't go whining. You have to show analytically why it's not
Mm-hmm.
working. And it's not us, because we pay it. It's the fact that you explain to me why you feel that we should get less of our own money back. Make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And go to the
That's right.
Department of Interior to make them our advocates, you see? Because
Mm-hmm.
and there are other things, for example, we should have had the cancer center here on St. Croix because we're the ones with the refinery. Make it make sense that we have a cardiac center when we're the one that had the refinery for 50 years, right? Now, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
against our sister island, St. Thomas. I'm talking if you have a
Mm-hmm.
refinery, then you should have something regarding cancer. The 100 miles in Louisiana between Baton Rouge and New Orleans is known as Cancer Alley.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I went to school with people who've lived there, whose parents and siblings and auntie and uncles and a neighbor died young, cancer, never worked there. But we know that when it blows off,
Mm-hmm. The
breathing
pollution
it
and
in,
everything else. Yeah.
yes, yes, it poisons your plants, poisons your
Mm-hmm.
animals, poisons your children, and so that's what they call it, Cancer Alley.
Wow.
So, and as I said before, I'm extremely intentional when I
Mm-hmm.
go after things. I really am. I research. I and I learned this as an English lit major. I wouldn't just read the poem, but I would read the critiques because I want to know what was going on at that time, so I could write about it in the round. And I do
Yeah.
the same thing now, you know, and that's why I could tell you, yes, the money is there, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I think that we need to change the way we attack things. Make
Sure.
people
Sure.
prove to us that they're being fair by giving us less.
Good, but which leads me to two more questions I have. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, as we know, we have the Sixth Constitutional Convention and they're working on
Mhm.
the new draft. And if you
Yes,
were to be elected, potentially you will be the individual that will be presenting the Constitution to your colleagues for approval.
yes.
What what are your thoughts on what role you could see yourself besides presenting it, but what role you could see yourself playing in ensuring once elected in ensuring that the Constitution makes it to where it needs to get to, so that the Virgin Islands can actually have a constitution that can exist and could be amended to address ongoing issues or um, different things that come up within the territory. Because in order to change what we considered our de facto constitution, the Revised Organic Act of 1954, we have to go ask Congress. So,
Right.
what are your thoughts on that? And then my second to last question is involving energy. You know, we all know WAPA's piece of
Yes.
something to many individuals, including myself. I feel really bad for St. Thomas and John District. They lose
Hmm.
power all the time. What are some things you think you could do as delegate to Congress to help the next administration with energy? So those are my two questions.
Okay. Starting with the first one, Constitution.
Yes.
We missed a great opportunity to start off on the right foot when it comes to the Constitution. And because we do not know why we are writing a constitution, nor do we know what are we trying to accomplish, because the issue of status should be and should have been the driving force toward a
Mhm.
constitution. Each one of the three options, free association, stay how we are, or look to become a state, each one
Mhm.
is so different
Yes.
that each constitution would have taken on a different thrust.
Sure.
Okay. So having established that, you have people who feel one way, some who feel the other. And what it is, it's a man pot because everything gets thrown in there because we're not writing toward any particular goal.
Mm.
You see, that
Understood.
is, yes, that is the greatest impediment to having a cohesive document because it doesn't go anywhere.
Hmm.
Knowing that, the best thing that we could have done is to go ahead and copy the United States Constitution, insert island for state and Virgin Islands for America, United States. You see?
Hmm.
So the Virgin Islands, this, wherever it says that, wherever it's applicable. But just copy it, make those changes, get it approved, because then we should have the right to amend it without having to go back. But because we're not writing to establish anything, we're not, because it's not being written to any particular status. So it would always be a quilt, a patchwork quilt, because we're going to try to please everyone and include everything. And some things are going to be on their face contradictory, because some item will be placed in there, which will be towards statehood. Another one will be there in free association.
Mm-hmm.
Some people actually feel we don't need the damn thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the best day, we're going to have conflicting items in there. So in line with your question, when it comes to me, I am going to come home and I'm going to have probably a week where I'm going to say, we need to talk about this, and you're going to have to tell me so I could tell them, what did
Mm-hmm.
you mean here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so
Because
you could get
again,
clear understanding.
okay, yeah, exactly. Because again, I think by now you know that I do a lot of research. So I can take a position and be able to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not willing to sit and do those things, then you're not serious about what you're doing. You know?
True.
Yeah. Oh, your second question?
And energy. Yes. So what would you do as delegate with the next incoming administration to help address the energy crisis that Virgin Islanders are facing currently?
I did a deep dive on this, and what it is that there are 10 federal agencies that have a direct link to WAPA. And we have never gotten those 10 agencies together to have a plan going forward. 10, right? Including rural utilities, and they are the ones with the money. Now, on this side, on the local side, I don't think that we have ever, probably in the last 15 years, gotten an honest answer about WAPA and their finances.
That part.
Yeah.
I don't think so
And
either.
yeah. And I'm not afraid to say it. I think we get something that shuts us up, because two things that I'm trying to find out. Number one, where did $1 million gone and who sent it? And how'd you come up with $1 billion deficit? How?
Mm-hmm.
Because what I would do as soon as elected and I'm sworn in, I would request that someone come from each one of those 10 federal agencies, and we are going to meet, and we're going to meet for a minute, because these are the experts. And I don't want the secretary to come and take notes. No. What I want is someone who could give me a yes or no, because I don't want to be meeting for months. I want to meet for perhaps a
Shane,
month, because this is a very
can you, Mr. Hansen, 1 second? You're breaking up on my end. So let me
ah
see what's going on. Yeah, let me see. Let me add you back on the stage. Maybe that
mhm.
make a difference. Let me see now.
Yes.
Okay, that's better.
Okay, good. So to go back, what I would do is, as soon as I'm sworn in, my very first order of business, excuse me, would be to get a meeting with persons in those 10 agencies who could give me a yes or a no. But
Mm-hmm.
prior to that, I need to know the true numbers,
Yes.
because what I will not be is a moo going in there just saying, well, they told me it was this, and we don't have the balance sheets,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how we're going to solve it. You know, this thing is not about going to soirees and shaking hands and kissing babies. It's not. This office has to be given by the person sitting in the office the proper deference and the proper attention and
Yeah.
work. You see, I'm not a big party person. That was back when disco was big. Okay. So when I say these things, you could tell that I put a lot of thought into it, a lot of research in order to solve the problem. I'm not trying to put a band-aid on an amputation. I want solutions. So
Mm-hmm.
when we come out of that meeting, they know what we're facing, and what I will ask them to do is create a cohesive plan and give it to me. And then I think the composition of the board has to change. I think we need electricians there. I think we need persons who are water purification specialists. We need we need construction people, because right now I think that there are some very fine people working at WAPA, but the culture is such that they are handicapped. I
Mm-hmm.
was there for about 3 months, and the guy that they brought in was a bum. Straight up. You notice I don't pull many punches. I thought he was a damn bum.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him one day. In fact, I think it was my first or second day, because I only had 3 opportunities to speak to the guy, which was unheard of, because your communication director has to
Wow.
be in your head. Always too
Yes.
busy. Always too busy. And I said to him, the governor just came out and said that he would like to solar panel most of St. Croix. What are your
Yes.
thoughts? The guy looks at me and says he's a blanking idiot. That'll never happen. I'm
Oh.
like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. That's my governor you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be friends with people to respect their position.
Yes.
You see? But I was trying to give him that information, but he was in the middle of something, speaking of Governor Bryan. So I didn't get to tell him until it had been like 2 months. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to know that immediately, because you need to know who you're dealing with, and you need to know how these people think about you. Are you
Yes.
serious about what you're doing, or you just come here to cast scorn? You
Mm-hmm.
see, that's what I say was a bum.
But some would say that the legislature did propose legislation and it was passed. It was overridden because the governor vetoed it, which changed the composition of the WAPA board, and it required technical expertise. The legislation was challenged in court, and the court ruled in favor of the legislature. So the composition by law has a specific criteria that is supposed to be met. So do you think it's more of enforcement of the legislation, which is what seems to be the problem with a lot of legislations that are passed? It's not enforced. So do you think it's that avenue, or do you think it's just that individuals are not stepping up to serve on the board, or do you think it's enforcement of the actual legislation? Okay. I am not hearing you, so I don't know if you're muted or let me see. Okay. Speak again, let me see. No, I still can't hear you. Okay. Um Let me see, maybe you could come out the studio and come back in. I am not sure, but yeah, I'm not hearing you at all. Yeah. So while Mr. Hansen tries to come back on, he was just talking about he's gonna address my question, which was talking about the um because the legislature did pass legislation to change the composition of the board. So I want to get his perspective on if it's a more of an enforcement issue, or if it's more of people are not signing up to volunteer to be a part of the board. And then once he comes back, he answers that, and then I will give him an opportunity to close, give his last remarks, anything he wants to leave to the public. So let me see if it's fixed now. Okay, you still trying to fix it? Okay, let's see. Okay, this one and then not this one. Okay. Um, oh, that one. Okay, let me see if I can hear you. Still, I'm not hearing you, which is strange. Um, so audience, we're going to Be right back while we address this technical difficulty that we're experiencing. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. And so we're going to add Mr. Hansen back on to see to make sure his voice is working so that we could get back, resume this conversation, and then, of course, close for the evening. All right.
Okay, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Great. I guess the conversation was just that good that technical difficulties had to
I'm
happen.
telling you.
But I think like I tell people all the time, you know, there's always a reason for something. So I don't know what the reason was, but I'm glad we were able to get it fixed. So I
Yes.
was asking you about WAPA, and do you think the composition of the board thing is more of an enforcement issue, or is more of people just not volunteering to serve on the board that has that expertise?
I think it's both. I think that person's well, I think that person should have a degree of expertise in whatever field it is.
Yes.
I don't like I really can't see the value in putting someone on a board and it's learning by immersion. I think that person should have a certain expertise that they bring to the board rather than leaving with more expertise. Come ready to make decisions based on your training, your experience, and your expertise.
Hmm.
You know, that's what I think that we need. But it's not just WAPA. It's not just WAPA. We have some very interesting young people running for the Board of Education.
Yes.
And I and this is not a knock on anyone because it takes a lot to offer yourself for
For
service.
service. Agreed. Agreed.
But I would say that you have to have persons who are living in today's world and their experiences today, and that conversation don't start off, well, in my day we. I find, but that's how I've heard it many, many times. Well, in my day when it get too hot, We used to go underneath the flamboyant tree and learn from. Yeah, okay, that's great. But
Mm-hmm.
we have a school built with air conditioning.
Yes.
So that construction does not work with the big 5 foot, 6 foot windows,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't have the 18, 20 foot ceiling so that the heat go up. So
Yes.
we have to live and create today's solutions for today's problems.
Agreed. All
Yes.
right. And so now I want to give you the opportunity to close. As you know, early voting begins next week. And then after
Yes.
that, it's time for primary day, election day. We all know Saturday, August 1st is going to be all the teams, all the candidates are going to be at the elections, the different sites, campaigning, with the whole music. Like I tell people, like you have to see elections, you have to come in the Virgin Islands on election day or
Yes.
even primary election day. And I would just even say the Caribbean as a whole.
Yeah.
It's just something about elections and how people get revved up, the jingles,
Yes.
the shirts, the energy is just different.
Yeah.
So first of
We
all, I
take it
encourage you.
personal.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So number one, I encourage people to go out and vote. Definitely be a part of the process. um, don't say you're not involved. Get involved. Young people, same thing. Get out and vote. The only reason why we don't get included in the conversation is because they feel like we don't understand our purpose or importance
Mhm.
in these decisions. So go and vote. But Mr. Hansen, I want you to make your final case to the people of the Virgin Islands. If this was the last opportunity to tell them why you should be chosen to represent the Democratic Party in the general election as the representative for delegate to Congress, what would that be?
It would be that this is a Democratic primary. And in this primary, I am just not a Democrat. I am the Democrat because this experience has not been perfect, but you know what? We choose our own heaven and hell. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that the parties either, it's just by way of expression, but I want people to
Yes.
understand that I have been steadfast working through this party to make our lives better because I don't live on an island by myself.
Hmm.
So to that end, when I came, long before I was in the Senate, I was involved. I was involved being an officer in the Young Democrats, which me and a very talented and brilliant group, yeah, I'm
Yes.
including myself, brought it back and used it. And as you mentioned a moment ago, when we were told, hey, wait your turn.
You know how much time I hear that?
Oh, right there. Hey, you gotta wait your turn, you gotta be patient, but we refuse. You
Hmm.
never heard me complain when the Democrats weren't in power and someone felt it necessary to send me home. I'm doing a good job, but oh no, he voted for this one, he voted for that one. But I
Hmm.
stayed the course because that's who I am. I have a great deal of Prussian stubbornness in me, particularly after I've done my research and I believe in what I'm doing.
Hmm.
So to that end, when I was in the Senate, from the small piece that I've been able to share, you know that I brought worthwhile pieces of legislation.
Hmm.
After the Senate, I spent my own time, I spent my own money to go and represent the Virgin Islands in these meetings.
Hmm.
The party did not pay for me. I kept in touch with the people in DC who are still there. I met
Hmm.
Hillary's running mate, Tim Kaine, here in Shoals. He was vacationing here.
Wow.
Yeah. And he and I are still in touch. So
Hmm.
what I'm saying to all of you is that I have time in grade. And while you knew I was your state chair, you knew I was your national committee man, I invested in my people. But now it's time for you to cash in on that investment and send somebody to Congress who understands how to get these things done. Send someone to Congress who can go and get the funding carved out for us so that we may have those things like we can have our own homes. We can have We can be equal with anyone else in the nation as far as these programs that we paid for. Remember, these things are not gifts. You
Mm-hmm.
paid your money for Social Security, Medicare, you paid your money in. Our hospitals
Yeah.
should not be in the way they are. And also, I want you to really understand that while people are arguing for cents,
Mm-hmm.
I am the one that's out there that has the plan to create a whole new industry and a whole new tourism product just by changing one word to two. Get rid of rum cover over, make it distill spirits cover over. Because my intent is for us to move not closer to statehood or this or that, but to move closer to self-sufficiency. As I've said, I think in every debate I've been in, we need to build from within. We need to look around and see, pick up a stick. What can I do with this stick? How can I use this one stick to make things better? So that has been my charge, which I created for myself and I walk with over decades. And starting on Monday, the 20th,
Mm-hmm.
it's your opportunity to put someone in there that is not new to this party and it's not new to you. My name is Emmett Hansen, and I'm number one on your ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen, for coming on VA and we truly, first of all, the team truly appreciates you coming on. You're the first candidate from St. Croix, actually, this season to come on the show. So we want to again thank you. And we encourage our St. Croix candidates to come on. We have a bunch of candidates from St. Thomas that are booked. So St. Croix, we need you to come on. We want to give you the same opportunity to come and share. Of course, he's running for a territory-wide position, but he was registered in the St. Croix district. But please come out, reach back out to us. You know, you do not have to pay on the show to come. It's free. You know, you literally have an hour and change to talk about your plans. You know, you don't have to share the spotlight with anybody else and have to worry about them needing to rebuttal or response, but you actually get the opportunity to really just share what you plan to do. So I want to thank you again, Mr. Hansen, for coming on, for accepting our invitation. And I think this conversation was very enlightening, especially with where we are now, where the Virgin Islands will get the chance to elect a new person to delegate to Congress. So I just send you good luck, and we'll see how the primary goes on August 1st.
Listen, thank you so much. I appreciate you and your team. You asked great questions, and and I could tell you did your homework too.
Thank you.
All right.
And you,
Well,
yes,
again,
you
I would
take care.
encourage everyone to come on because this is the best one that I've been on.
Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that. All right. You take care, and we will definitely be in touch.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. You too. All right. So thank you again to Mr. Emmett Hansen for coming on. I truly appreciate him taking time, you know, to be here to discuss his plans as he decides to run for delegate to Congress. As you heard him say, he's number one on the ballot for the August 1st Democratic primary. You can, since he's running for a territory wide position, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, you all get the opportunity to vote for him if you so choose. So please don't waste your time. Early voting is July 20th to July 29th. And then, of course, the primary day is August 1st. Go out and vote, exercise your right. I want to thank you all for sticking with me. I know my camera was off throughout the show, but my allergies were killing me. And I did not want you all to see me sneezing and, you know, all of those different things on camera. But I stuck it through for you guys because I wanted to make sure that you all got the episode. My team was talking to me about us not necessarily having the episode, but I told them no because we booked it with Mr. Hansen and we wanted to make sure he come on the show because we all have busy schedules. So I pushed through. But now, with that being said, I can now relax for the rest of the evening. But I want to thank everyone for coming on. Thank you for participating. Thank you for watching. share this with many individuals so that they can learn about Emmett Hansen and see what he plans to bring into the role of delegate to Congress. This was your host and political commentator, Anthony Martin Barrow Jr. And I just really, truly appreciate you all coming on and watching. Thank you. And I will definitely see you all tomorrow for episode 7. And episode 7, we will be interviewing Michelle Catherine, and she's running for the Board of Education on the St. Thomas St. John District. So, with that being said, thank you for tuning in to VI and We, sponsored by Active Advocates, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care, stay safe, and remain positive always.